and she makes him x-ray it and look at it, and each time the pins are looser and the bone has gone more, and she says to this old guy, to the surgeon, "It's much better, isn't it?" Hoping he'll agree. He waffles. He looks over at me. I'm no help. She makes him promise never to take the arm off, never to let anyone else take it off either, and he promises, assuming she'll forget.
This is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. Ever since we invented this program back in 1992, we have wanted to have tonight's guest here with us. So, to introduce her, my co-host, Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
Since 1992, that's 8 years we've been waiting for you to come on this program. Marian Seldes, where have you been holding out on us? What's going on?
It's like Beckett you're waiting for.
Marian. Marian Seldes is a leading actress of the American theater. She has appeared on Broadway in Medea, Tiny Alice, A Delicate Balance, Equus, Death Trap. Off-Broadway, just a few years ago, she gave an unforgettable performance in Three Tall Women, and she's about to do a new Edward Albee play called The Play About the Baby.
Yes.
Marian Seldes, welcome to Theater Talk.
Thank you. I've been waiting 8 years.
The phone was ringing. I guess we had the wrong number. Very happy to have you tonight.
Thank you.
All right, you're about to plunge into Edward Albee's latest, The Play About the Baby. Can you tell us a little bit? I hesitate to say what's the play about, because I know Edward would say it's about the baby.
He would indeed, and so it is.
Yes.
My love of this play began a long time ago, and I was in it in Houston. We did it at the Alley Theater, where Edward Albee directed it. So I have a little bit of history with it. And of course it was done originally in London. Mm-hmm. So it's taken a long time. It's interesting, we joke about the years, but how long it takes sometime for something that you want to happen. And to learn patience in the theater is very hard. You want the result, you want to see it.
Right.
And I'm thrilled, of course.
What is the character that you're going to be playing in this?
She's just called Woman. She has no other name. And she's it's a two-act play, mm-hmm. and I don't think the audience knows who she is in the first act. Everything she does is dependent on the other character called Man. Mm-hmm. And I think in the second act, you do make up your mind who she is, mm-hmm. but I don't think it's the same for everyone in the audience. I think Edward is a very mysterious writer. Even in his greatest plays, Virginia Woolf, Three Tall Women, A Delicate Balance. For me, there's a sense of mystery and almost terror, which is folded into these amazing characters and great wit. Mm-hmm. The one thing I know about this woman is she's funny.
Well, yes, I saw the play in its incarnation in London. I'm
yes.
sure it's changed since then. And just to sketch it in a little for the audience, it's about an older couple and a younger couple.
Right.
And it's, not to give it away, it's not clear what their relationship is.
No.
But you're absolutely right about what Edward does, is because there is a sense of menace, as there often
menace
is in his
is a
plays.
good word,
That's
yes.
right. There is a sense of menace.
Yeah.
And your character is menacing, and yet, and this is what Edward always does, which is really brilliant.
Yeah.
You're menacing, and yet strangely likable and sympathetic at the very same time.
And fascinating.
Yeah.
That's the gift to an actress, that the very thing that is mysterious makes you very interesting. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of wonderful parts that the audience knows right, they're comfortable with you.
Right, right.
And you're a little bit uncomfortable with this play. And the young people are as one. They are so married. They're so together.
They're so in love.
And so in love with each other. And it's a very sexual relationship. And ours is almost asexual, the man and the woman. The man will be acted by Brian Murray, an actor that I adore.
And whom you were recently in with Teresa Rebeck's The Butterfly Collection.
Yes.
A play that I thought the world of. I thought that was a terrific play, given a bad shake by the critics.
I did too. I loved it, and I miss it. It's a strange feeling when a play ends. It's if part of you is gone. It isn't gone. It's in your memory. The things we'll talk about today are things that are still with me. I only once in my whole career have I ever did a play that I didn't truly love. And I only did it because I wanted the opportunity to work with Herman Shumlin. I was very young, and I thought, this is the man who directed Lillian Hellman's plays.
What was the play, by the way?
It was called The High Ground, and it was a mystery that had been done in London. And I'm not sorry I did it, but it's the only play I wouldn't have said to you both, oh, I wish you'd have seen it.
Right.
And you have a record of staying in place for a very long time.
I do, but then I am a theater animal. I live in the theater. I'm not waiting to go and do a movie. And also, my interest never flags. I mean, of course you must go if you're not interested anymore. But the play I was in longest, Death Trap, I can say it now, but when I was in it, I could never say it. I really was only in the first act of that play. The character dies.
Right. We know the ending now. It's
now it's all right to say it. So I wasn't really in the play for 5 years. I was in the play for sort of 2.5. And Equus I was in for 3 years. But the interesting thing from my point of view when you stay a long time in a play is that everyone else changes. It wasn't as if I was coming month after month to the same situation.
Right.
I played with many marvelous actors I might never have had a chance to work with. And in both cases, Equus and Death Trap, they were marvelous plays.
Now, it's not only, though, that you stay with plays a long time. I mean, you're famous in the theater for never missing performances.
Well, I never missed high school either. I can't, that's in my nature. It has nothing to do with acting. It's just that I want to do what I'm supposed to do.
Even when you're sick or not feeling well? I mean, don't you ever want to take a personal day, a sick day? You just...
No, I don't.
Do you come crawl, even when you're on your last legs, do you still come crawling into the theater to do the show?
Well, I take a lot of care of my health. I learned very early just how much energy, just how much life you have to save for the performance. And I don't let anything change that. I mean, it wouldn't surprise you if I were an athlete or a ballet dancer if I told you that. I would never just walk into the theater and do it. I prepare my life for it.
We did an interview last season with Elaine Stritch here, and she quoted Ethel Merman saying that when you're in a show, you have to live like a nun. Is that the way you have to structure
words
your
to
life?
that effect, yes.
She used a vulgarity that Ethel Merman would use, but we're cleaning up for the classy Marian Seldes.
Well, yes, you have to say no to a lot of things. But those things seem frivolous by comparison with acting for an audience. It's a tremendous privilege. The actual fact that people come to see the play you're in, I'll never get over it. And the opposite of that is when they don't come, it hurts.
What is it like? I mean, you've dealt, of course, over the years with critics and reviews. And I thought with the play you were in recently, The Butterfly Collection, there's something interesting happened, and I wonder how an actor responds to this. It seemed to me in previews the audience was really responding to this play. Then the review comes out, and it's not a very good review. Does it change the way the audience responds to what you're doing?
Well, you say the review.
The Times.
The Times, right, yeah.
It happened to me once so devastatingly that this time in the Butterfly Collection I was able to meet it with a certain amount of strength and courage. I was in a play called Father's Day by Oliver Haley, and I played a character called Marian, which was sort of a send-up of myself. And it was a very funny play, a slashingly funny, with almost some mean humor in it about men and women and their marriages. And at the previews, you'd have to sort of stop after some of the lines to let the audience finish laughing. It was so glorious. We closed the night we opened. I came back the next day and all the flowers were on the street.
Oh.
It was so, and I loved it so. And I remember thinking, from now on I'll take taxis and I'll eat at Sardi's. This is it.
This was all the Times Review was doing?
This just wasn't it. It just
You thought you were in. You had
Of
made
course
it.
I
It was
did.
a. Yeah.
So it wasn't exactly the same at Playwrights Horizons, but because we did play out our allotted
Right.
time.
Right.
But a new thing has happened off Broadway. That isn't enough anymore. You want to be extended and you want to move.
That's right. Everyone has
Because
move-itis.
the pa-
Transfer here, transfer
The pattern
there.
has changed.
Right.
We
Right.
never would have thought of that in the beginning of Off-Broadway. It's, for me, everything about being an actress has to do with the play and the writer of the play. And if the writer is living, I want the play's life, if it begins in New York City, it can be a launching pad. Then they'll do it everywhere. But alas, if it isn't well received in New York, especially in the Times, it's a blow.
Have you developed, I mean, I guess actors have to, a thick skin to deal with reviews? Do you read reviews? Some actors don't
I
read
read
reviews.
all of them.
You do? Why?
But I also read all of the reviews of all the plays. I think it's part of being in the theater. I think to just close the door and say the critics aren't part of my life, it's just for myself I'm saying this. That's unreal to me. I also have to tell you that I am the daughter of
Your
Yes, I
father
was
was a
just
critic.
But my father was an appreciator.
And he was, tell us.
Oh, Gilbert Seldes.
course, yes.
And I don't ever remember what I think of as a cruel review. My father looked for what was interesting and new and original. But I have to say, you can't be excited and pleased and happy when they like your work, and absolutely devastated and hate them when they don't. It's all a matter of taste. And it's like food, it's like love, it's like anything in life. People have very strong opinions. And if they didn't, they wouldn't be critics. I sometimes think I could do almost anything in the theater, but I couldn't be a critic.
Really?
In the first place, I couldn't write the précis of the play. I couldn't do that.
Couldn't just give us the basic plot summary?
No, I just, you'd go, oh, what? Or I'd get it wrong. But I think literary criticism, art criticism, theater criticism is a very important part of what we do. And without it, we couldn't survive.
What is your feeling about the level of theater criticism today?
Well, I grew up reading Stark Young.
Brilliant.
And
Eric Bentley.
yes, and Harold Clurman, and it's funny, I'm really talking about magazines. I think a critic has more time and has more just time to think about it and work on the review, the actual writing of the review. I don't know. I often say I don't compare because I don't want to be someone older who keeps saying, but
All right, the good old days when...
I love this time in my life in the theater, and so I don't want to be negative about it.
I'm curious to know, when did you think you wanted to be an actress?
At the very beginning, before I could think of anything else. I never had any other wish.
Because you grew up around the theater, sort of...
I did.
Your
I
father
mean, I
knew
was
theater
taken
people.
to the theater
Yeah.
when I was young, and consistently to all kinds of theater. And,
Do you remember the first thing that made an impression?
well, the first play I ever saw was also the first play Edward Albee ever saw, and that was Jumbo.
Oh.
And it
the
combined
poster, yes.
everything. It combined circus, it combined song, it combined acting, it was romantic. It was in the Hippodrome, it was magnificent. And of course, and even before that, I was, like most children, in Christmas pageants and things like that. And I wanted to do that. I didn't know if I could. I like all, well, I think it's the same in every profession. You don't, if you adore what you see, you think, well, I don't know if I can do it.
Did your parents want you to do that?
My parents wanted me to do whatever I wanted to do. They were, I think, slightly tremulous about the long period in my life when I also wanted to be a dancer, because they thought that that would not be enough. But I studied for a long time to be a dancer, and I have no regrets about it. I loved the discipline, and I loved, in an odd way, it's funny, that story about Elaine and Ethel Merman and the nun. Studying dancing.
That sounds like a bad joke, actually.
It doesn't it?
And the nun.
But we won't tell you. Isn't that wonderful? With those two people. But what I mean was the discipline that dancing takes, and the fact, for instance, that I've never smoked because I thought I was going to be a dancer. And the care of yourself because you want to be a dancer.
If I may say, too, though, I mean, it's interesting that you were a dancer because, you know, critics have described the way you move on stage. You move in the very graceful, elegant way. I sometimes think you're almost like, you know, a beautiful insect, the praying mantis, as it unfolds itself. And whenever I see you perform, that's exactly what you're doing. I mean, I can see where the training of a dancer comes into acting. Do you still draw on your training as a dancer to move that way?
I'm sure I do. And I'm sure I use my body almost to protect the character I'm playing, if you know what I mean. I think with the advent of so much television and film, of course, the physical life is diminished. You see what the camera shows, and the camera focuses on people's hands, people's feet, the way their shoulders, everything you do. Your eyes, they're there to be used, but on film it's less.
Right.
Not if you have a Magnani, not if you have someone brave and daring and a great director. But behavior seems to be the standard.
Don't act.
Well, or act less or act smaller. I'm severely criticized for what you like.
I think of your wonderful performance in Three Tall Women, where you were doing this hulking, you were doing the caretaker. What was the
Yes.
character's name?
She
B.
was
B, right?
You know Edward with names. Man, woman, A, B.
This remarkable, kind of hunchback
Yes.
thing you took on.
Well, I thought, why does she stay with this woman, caged in this house with this terrifying woman? Well, it must be because it's difficult to do other things, and this suits her. And then I knew, of course, from reading the play, that in the second act she was someone else. And I wanted it to be really someone else. Not everyone plays it that way, nor should they. And I don't know if Edward really approved of my choice. Then
Did he ever say anything?
I just sensed, for Edward, the simplest, really the simplest thing, just the words is enough. But we've come to the point in the theater where it sometimes isn't enough for the audience. They want sets and diversion and so on. But then when I changed, in all these plays where I stayed a long time, I usually also changed characters.
Yes, right.
And when I played A, which is a truly great part, then the rigidity and how could she move even her hands? She had the one hand in a sling and a cane for the other. That's very good for me.
I want to go back to something that you did touch on. You said you have been criticized for these big performances. I mean, I love them. I'm with John Simon, who recently said of you that these are the kind of performances we used to get on Broadway. These big, meaty, not afraid to go all out. I mean, that's the way you have always approached acting. I mean,
No.
you don't do things in a small way.
No, Michael. In the beginning, almost every part I played was contained and quiet, and I'm thinking of the Chalk Garden, and when I played with Catherine Cornell and Judith Anderson, I played very, very contained, quiet people, and my work went almost unnoticed. Even in Ondine, with Alfred Lunt directing, although the princess was, I suppose, a larger-than-life character, I didn't have the courage to go as far as I always wanted to. I was an extremely obedient actress, and I did what I was told. In the middle of my life, I got courage. And the parts I got changed. If you play Mrs. Pampanelli in The Torchbearers, the actress I've just described is not the actress you want. And the demands made on me by directors were greater. And I think I'm fearless now, and I'm willing to take whatever criticism is given to me.
When you say you got courage,
Yeah,
where did that come
how
from?
did that come about?
I think it came from Garson Kanin.
Your husband?
Late in my life, everything changed. I began a life with him, and first of all, he was so witty and so funny, and I remember in the beginning thinking, well, wow. And we have to say that he was married to Ruth Gordon, whose wit was just...
Right.
And they did such scripts together and worked together. So I felt so shy. And then I'd hear him laughing, and then he let me tell his stories. And I just thought, well, I can do anything now.
Mm.
I have someone who believes in me, and I think it changed my life.
To talk a little bit about Garson Kanin, I mean, was this a man you fell in love with at first sight?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Remember when you met him, where you were?
Everything. I remember everything. I remember tearing out the pages in Life magazine when I was, I don't know, maybe 16 years old. Pictures of him directing. And I thought, oh, the look on his face. He adored actors. He adored them. He was a wonderful actor. And then I saw Born Yesterday when I was in high school. I never saw anything like it. So I went again and again. I saw The Diary of Anne Frank. I thought his work in the theater was...
So you got to know the man through his work before you actually met the man?
Absolutely.
And when did you meet him?
I met him in a play he wrote, adapted from a book, called The Death of a Man by Lael Wertenbaker, called A Gift of Time, a play about a man dying of cancer. And the leading actor was Henry Fonda. And I certainly remember, before I went to the first rehearsal, saying to myself, do not fall in love with Henry Fonda. Just go. because I adored his acting. And he was one of those great movie stars who constantly, or consistently, I should say, came back to the theater. But to work with Garson Kanin as a director was an amazing thing. And it also influenced my teaching. Mm-hmm. I taught at Juilliard for more than 20 years, and it was one of the great joys of my life. And Garson did not tell actors what to do or where to go. He observed the actor. He arranged the set. Mm-hmm. He wrote the play. He put you in it and then watched you. Mm. And then worked with what you did. And it was such a liberating way to work. You put me here. I don't know what you're going to say. I don't know if I should go and have a sip of the coffee, if that's all right. We see what happens. What if I spill the coffee? What happens? It's almost like...
We never know what's going to happen
No,
on this
of
show.
course not. And it's almost an improvisation. And out of it, refinement. He was very demanding. And in the end, it had to be
right.
Perfect and right. Well, it was a tremendous experience for me.
But I'm sure you've worked with some directors. I mean, John Dexter, for example, on
Yes,
Equus. I mean, that
yes.
must have been a radically different approach to it, because Dexter was famous for kind of an authoritarian...
And so he should have been, because he was, in a way, a genius. Mm-hmm. But he had done Equus in London. So we were, in a way, doing that play again. Mm-hmm. It was fascinating. Every second of it was fascinating. And when I talk about Fonda coming back to the theater, I wish that Anthony Hopkins hadn't given up on the theater, because I thought he was electric, brilliant, wonderful. I think part of the, not a test, the challenge in acting is, suppose you have a director who says, when you finish this line, lean over and take the coffee. Mm-hmm. Shumlin was like this. Turn the page of the newspaper on that word. Well, all right, then the challenge is to make it
real.
Utterly real.
Right.
And why not?
Right.
If you're a conductor, you say, play that note. Then not when you feel like it. So I don't mind.
So you don't. You can work either way. I mean, you just like
must.
the challenge.
Absolutely, you
Give it to it,
must. You have to start every play as if you've never done a play.
Marian Seldes.
It can't be over.
It's fabulous.
It is
that we're-
half an hour like that. And I want to say, it's Marian Seldes, not Seldes, which everyone in the theater always says. Seldes, and you've never corrected them, so maybe tonight we can put Seldes to rest, and you are reborn as Marian Seldes.
And I'll have a whole new life in the theater, thanks to you.
You're a wonderful actress and a good friend of ours, and
Oh, thank you both.
we appreciate you coming on tonight.
My pleasure.
And we will see you next time on Theater Talk. Good night. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Friedrich Loewe Foundation, the Corey and Bob Dinelli Charitable Fund, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, John Jerome and Christopher McDowell, and public funds from the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
Playbill Online is the official website of Theater Talk and the home of the Playbill Club, providing exciting opportunities for theater lovers. We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.